Ricky Thompson, Baylor Sideline Reporter for Baylor Radio, former Baylor wide receiver with us on 365 Sports. Ricky, 6-6, no matter what. You know, Bill Parcells, he's not the only one. You are who your record says you are, and I think probably after this year, that probably is exactly who they are. Your thoughts, first of all, how quickly can you wash a season? I know there's a bowl game, but how quickly do you think Dave Aranda and staff are jumping into what the heck they're going to do in the offseason, what decisions they have to make?
Smokey, I bet they've already done that. I think they're probably in the middle of that right now. I think we know transfer portal date is, December 5th, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I think they'll be active in all regards. I'm sure they're working really hard to keep this signing class intact. I think it's one of the better ones in the history of Baylor football, if they can hold on to it, which I think they probably will. But I think you're already working on next year. I know you've got a bowl game, and I know they want to win that. And we'll speak to that. I think the win in that bowl game is pretty critical. I think you do that, you're 7-6. I think you can remember winning a Texas Bowl some years ago that we finished 7-6 off of, came back and went 11-3 the next year. So while the bowl game is a month away and some think it may not be as big a bowl as we were hoping for, which it's not, I still think it's important to go win that thing. But I think next year is already underway.
Ricky, do you think they need to open up the quarterback competition in the spring?
I kind of expected they probably will or probably would have anyway. I think so. I think that's good. I think it's good for Blake. I think it's good for all the other quarterbacks that will be there. I'm not sure. I think Novosad is supposedly going to come in the spring. I'm not sure. I think that's right. And if he is, you'll have 3 or 4 guys out there that will be competing, and I think that's good. I think it's good for everybody. Blake's played, 12, 13 games, so he's far from an experienced guy, and I think everybody knows we need some improvement back there, and it may just be him. But I think it'll be competitive in the spring in any regard.
So, Ricky, going back to Friday, they jump out to the 9-0 lead with the safety and the touchdown, and then Texas comes storming back, and it's 14-9. Then Baylor grabs the lead by halftime, and then just the second half really got away from them. The fourth quarter, in particular, really got away from them. What was the story of Saturday's loss to you, or Friday's loss to you?
Well, a couple things. I think number one, I think that we were pretty ineffective on offense in the second half. And number two, Texas finally decided Quentin Ewers is not going to do this today, and Bijan Robinson is. And we're going to run the football, and we're going to run it, and then we're going to run it again. And I think that's where the game changed. I think they took control offensively with their line and Bijan Robinson. I mean, how many times have we said in the past couple of years that when we can take control like that up front and run the football, we're going to win? You went 12-2 last year doing that. So I think that was the difference in the game. That guy's a stud. He's really good. He's a good guy. I hope he makes a bucket load of money, and I hope he leaves this year.
Yeah, you and 11 other, now is it going to be 13 other schools, I think, because of the new that's being added in the next year. How much, in your opinion, and the word could either be underachieved at times, it looked like they were kind of who they were last year, but that was an elite defense. How much were you disappointed the defense never seemed to be able to really become disruptive and create havoc in the defensive line that had so many people back, didn't dominate more than they did?
Well, I think we all are. And I think part of that's a reflection of the guys that were behind them and the inexperience back there and the fear of bringing those guys like they did last year. And I'll go back the same. I mean, guys, think about what you lost. You lost Jalen Petrie, which is one of the best that's ever played back there. Terrell Bernard, who I watched in the Sugar Bowl completely blow up an offensive guard to go get a sack. You had J.T. Woods at safety, who ran, 4.29. You lost a lot of guys back there that were skilled type guys that took a lot of the pressure off that defensive front and just let them play. And I think that was a completely different scenario this year. And I don't think, sure, they weren't as good as what we were hoping or thought they might be, but I think there's some reasonably obvious reasons that they weren't. Now, where they go next year, I don't know. You lose a lot of those guys up front, and we'll see if these younger guys step in.
Ricky, the team, I was watching the Michigan game the other day, and J.J. McCarthy willed himself into the end zone on a touchdown. They willed themselves to stops when Ohio State looked like they were maybe trying to get back in it. Why did Baylor not have that gene this year?
I don't think that's one that I can answer. Obviously, we didn't. There were several occasions when we're one play away. Brigham Young, you're one play away. TCU, you're one play away. West Virginia, you're one play away. You win those ball games, you're 9-3. So I don't know what that was, but you're really very, very close to a 9-3, 10-2 football team. Yet you're 6-6 because you didn't make those plays, and that's the difference between winning and losing. And I think you can even go back to some third downs when we had drop balls. I mean, those kind of plays. I promise you, TCU made the bulk of those plays this year. You guys saw that game. They weren't that much better than us, if any, on that day. But during the year to go 12-0, they made those third down plays. They made the third down stops. And a lot of that is just will to get it done and the will to win. And a lot of that comes from on-field leadership. And I just think we lost a ton of it last year.
Yeah, some of those games, and this is, again, the quarterback gets a lot of the adulation and also some of the blame, but there was a series against TCU, the next to the last series, on a third down run where Blake slid a couple of yards short. And we can talk about Ben Sims opened or not, but all that. But it just seemed like that little extra oomph at times just wasn't there, and it wasn't just the quarterback position.
Pick against Texas down 4 points.
Yeah.
I mean, there in the second half, and then Texas goes down and scores, and the game's over. Basically, I mean, I think that was probably the frustrating part, was just the timeliness of some of those turnovers. How much of that is just Blake getting adjusted to playing, do you think, Ricky? And how much of that at this point is like, okay, that's not a problem that needs to be occurring week after week, these interceptions?
Well, it's not, and I think you go into next season with that attitude if Blake's playing. I think that's unacceptable. In the second year you're back there, you can't have that. There were too many plays back there that we left on the table, and you can't do that. Now, I'm in no way putting all this on Blake Shapen because it's not. The kid played his guts out and made some incredible throws. The throw he made to Ben Sims at the end of the first half Friday was a great throw. Sims was open, but he had to zip that thing in there between coverages. And I thought it was one of the better throws he's made. It was just a really good throw. And I just think that as he grows, the longer you play back there, the more that's expected of you and the fewer mistakes you can make. And I think if he's the guy next year, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's not, that he can't make those plays, and then he's got to make the ones that he did, just like sliding. It's okay to slide, and there are times to slide, and believe me, and on most occasions you want that. But on 3rd and 3, when you're at 2 yards, you got to just tuck it, lower your shoulder, and go. And if you happen to get dinged, you get dinged. But, I'd say 7 out of 10 times you probably do slide. But there are those 2 or 3 where you just can't. You got to get it. You got to get the first down, and the first down's the difference in winning and losing.
Do you think now, based on who Baylor was, that the quarterback decision to go with Shapen, who seemed like the right choice at the time, was that the right choice over Gary Bohannon?
I think so. I do think it was. I just think we watched Gary last year really hesitant to sling the ball over the middle 2 or 3 times, really had critical interceptions, one in the end zone. I know Blake had one there too, but I just think with what the ability to throw the ball and the change there was appropriate as far as pure quarterback. Now, the one thing that Gary added that we didn't have was the quarterback running the football and just flat power zone with the quarterback running the ball, and you lost that because Blake, with his size, just that's not a kid you wanted to run that play. But I do. I think it was the right decision.
Ricky, thank you. Ought to be an interesting offseason, not only with what they do, and we'll see what happens with either some staff who get opportunities elsewhere or what Dave Aranda might do, if anything, as they move on from 6-6, a bowl game coming up. What are your thoughts about Matt Rule to Nebraska?
Surprised me a little bit. I think I don't know if that's in his wheelhouse or not. Of course, probably being in Texas wasn't necessarily it either, but I do think he fits the college game more so than the NFL, and that's an opportunity. But I'll say this, I would be shocked if he doesn't add a couple of Texas high school guys or Texas-related coaches to that staff, because Nebraska completely lost their ability to recruit in Texas when they went to the Big Ten. And I think he's smart enough with his connection with Texas coaches that somewhere in there, Smokey, we're going to see something Texas-related on that staff.
We had him on live, and he jumped on with us, which was during a really busy, hectic afternoon. And I asked him about Texas. We all did. And he mentioned that they have to be here all over, not just like in Dallas or Houston. They're going to be all over. They'll have coaches that know those areas. And so you're exactly right. Who it might be or how many it might be, not sure. Evan Cooper's going to be a part of it. We know that, and he understands it because he was here when he helped build up the early parts of Baylor. Now, whether or not he can find another guy like a Sean Bell or a David Wetzel or even a Joey McGuire in that mix, that remains to be seen, but I bet they give it a shot.
I bet they do, too.
Thank you, Ricky. Appreciate your time. We'll see you during the bowl week.
Thanks, guys.
Ricky Thompson,
you bet.
Former Baylor wide receiver, Baylor radio sideline reporter, on a lot of the questions that Baylor has and faces after kind of, hitting the skids with 3 losses in a row. Kansas